Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday, February 9th. House Speaker Ron Mariano is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. Even a supermajority has its limits. The challenges in a time of budget uncertainty and a White House that could send everyone back to the drawing board. The Speaker is here. It's time to go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR, everyone. I'm Ed Harding.
I'm Charmin Sacchetti, and with us at the table is Massachusetts Speaker of the House, Ron Mariano. He has held the gavel since December of 2020, a member of the House since 1991. His 3rd Norfolk district includes his native Quincy. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm always tempted to say Mr. Speaker. It's not the Speaker. It's Mr. Speaker. It's great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
The House moved on the emergency shelter crisis last week. Let's start there this morning. Passing a $425 million bill that keeps the system funded. This time there are residency requirements and length of stay restrictions. More attention paid to prior criminal convictions in the wake of arrests for drugs, weapons, sexual assault. So, given all of that, did it take too long to get to this level of scrutiny?
Well, I think that one of the things that, if you go back to the beginning when we started to see the huge influx of refugees, the House had real questions, serious questions about whether or not the emergency assistance program could handle the numbers that were being predicted. We wanted to slow this thing down to make sure that we could get a handle on it. And we were convinced that these folks coming in were in dire need, and we had to address the thing immediately. And we did that probably without as much preparation as we normally would have had to do. So what you ended up having was a few incidences which created some serious problems for a lot of people, both in the shelter and people dealing with the folks that as they tried to place them. So we knew, just based on the expense side, we were going to have to relook at this at some point. And so one of the great decisions, a tough decision we had to make, was how to bring this under control financially and to bring the numbers down.
Well, when you what? The first amount was roughly $900 million, and this is a little over $4 billion. That's a lot of money in a short period of time. So how do you bring it down?
Well, one of the things we're trying to do is get the numbers down. We were as high as 7,700. Now the goal is to get the number down to below 4,000.
Number of families you're talking about.
Number of families, yeah. So that in itself will help with some of the cost issues that we're facing. But the real issue is getting the people in there that need the help immediately and making sure that they have access while weeding out some of the actors that really don't belong.
Leadership was criticized by Republicans who say this all happened without public input, and they also say there should be universal background checks for some of the folks that are going in there, instead of, say, Corey checks, which only track any criminal convictions in state. So what's your response to that?
Well, the criticism is accurate when you're talking about the refugees, because who are you going to send for a police report back home in Venezuela or wherever the folks are coming from? You're not going to get a timely response. So meanwhile, you've got a family at your door and you're waiting for a response that may or may never come, and you have to make a decision. And there are certain factors that folks who are in this business use to make decisions, and we were making decisions based on those factors. And you know, the governor thought that there were Corey checks taking place, but evidently they were other background checks in place of Corey, so not everyone was getting a Corey. Right. So you had different standards actually for different families. So it was kind of a mess.
All right.
And then we got this piecemeal. I mean, one of the reasons why there was no public input, we got the numbers. We get the amount in the sub-budget, and then a couple of days later, or maybe a week later, we get a letter asking for changes in the program. Now, we had to evaluate those changes to see who's going to be benefiting and who's going to be the victims or the losers in it. So it took us time to do that. And we hadn't even formed our committees yet. It was right after we were sworn in that this began to happen. So we didn't have time to have a hearing. We didn't have time for any of that stuff. So what we did is we wrote a letter to the governor, sent it to all the members with our questions. The Ways and Means stays formed, oddly enough, when in the new session. So we sent the letter out to every member. These are the questions that we had in Ways and Means. If you have any additional questions, let us know. We got the response from the administration. The administration was prompt in getting us answers. We sent the answers out to all the members so they could weigh in. We didn't get an answer for a couple of questions we were looking for, and we're still talking to the administration now, trying to make sure that...
Yeah.
We do have a lot to get to. I want to ask you about federal funding as well. It's a big factor in the state budget. It could face some serious issues with the Trump administration. You know, the president wants to eliminate the Department of Education. What kinds of impact would something like that have here in Massachusetts?
Well, when you're losing one of your partners, it's tough. And the federal government has always been our partner. And the loss of federal funds will be significant in all segments of the budget. That's the interesting thing to me.
How do you prepare for that?
You don't. There is not much you can do. And one of the things that we have done in the past is when he was here before, when he eliminated a program, we thought the program was worthwhile, we funded it. We dug into our revenue stream, our ability to create revenue, and funded those programs. That's how the school lunch program gets started. You know, he cut it out completely. So we said, yeah, you want to cut it out.
The he you're referring to is
Trump.
Donald Trump,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. He is the nicest adjective. So.
I understand.
You have your opinion, certainly.
Yeah. So the issue has been and always will be, you have to evaluate the decisions he makes and the impact it has on your constituents and your residents.
I want to ask you about the end of the last legislative session in July. It was pretty chaotic. A lot of bills at the time sort of left on the floor. They weren't done. There was a lot that lawmakers waited until the last minute to get done.
Wow.
But and I will say this, you know, in the following months, you were able to get a lot done on healthcare oversight, and you can name a few of the others. But you did take a lot of heat over that sort of last minute crunch at the end. Are we going to see that again in the next few months?
No, listen, you know, contrary to some of the comments you hear, we're not tone deaf. We know that transparency question gets 70% of the vote, and that there's a huge cry for being able to look inside the system to see what's happening as in an ongoing basis. So we're prepared in our rules to make some changes that we hope will help people understand why that happened. And if you look at the issue
in the House rules and the rules that you set to govern your body.
Yeah, which the rules that we operate by, and when bills have to be moved. So we're hoping that we can make some changes in that. We're hoping we can get the Senate to go along with this.
What kinds of changes?
Well, around the dates that bills have to be moved.
So no longer July 31st,
well,
you think maybe?
No, that could change. The fact of the matter is we had some bills come out of the Senate on July 31st. Now, to send that to us on July 31st, knowing there's no way we could have a hearing on it, and there was no way we were going to have a vote on it,
so are you
was what caused a lot of the delay.
When are you looking at pushing that?
Well, we'll negotiate that. I think the Senate President has released a date in her mind that she thinks will work. I know that it will work.
You just touched on something I'd like to touch on right now.
Sure.
The state auditor, Diana DeZaglia, is pushed to audit the legislature. You just talked about transparency. You talked about the overwhelming majority. You just said like 70%. So let's break that down. The legislature remains, the relationship remains contentious, right? Is that fair to say? With you and the auditor, the legislature,
well,
and the auditor?
we have different opinions of what the Constitution allows.
Good. All right. You have different opinions. Both you and the Senate President have pointed to constitutional issues and the auditor says that this is stonewalling. It's the law and it's the will of the voters who backed all of this. So does this get resolved? How does this get resolved?
Well, I don't know how it gets resolved. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think the move is up to her. We think it is a violation of the separation of powers issue. The fact of the matter is that she was out pushing this question, and the question asked specific questions about how I think and how I make decisions, which is not an auditable data point. If you go through the auditing yellow book, never once is there a way to evaluate opinion making. I make decisions based on my opinion of the membership, and decisions of bills. There's no way that you can evaluate my decision making.
So what is the next step here? How does this get resolved?
Well, I think it's up to her. We really do believe that there's a separation of powers issue. And you're going to see this tested more on the federal level now with some of the things that are going on. That I think that this is not a dead issue. This, if anything, is going to expand to other areas.
Speaker Mariano's in the chair. We're on the record this morning. We'll be right back.